This is a Star Wars short story. Fan fiction. This is about a young Padawan named Tael Sundrow of the Night of Order 66. Tael sat on the floor in his room. He was meditating. He concentrated on the things around him that he could sense, but he was having trouble. He wasn't able to fully focus his mind on one thing, which was something that his master said he needed to work on. He grew frustrated, not being able to sense the things his master could. But he guessed that's why he was the Padawan, and not a Jedi Knight. He opened his eyes and stood up, stretching his legs. They always felt tense after he meditated. He guessed that was another thing he would have to work on. Tael looked at his lightsaber, which was right next to the book he was supposed to be reading. He debated which one he should pick up. His master would say to study, but his gut told him to go for the lightsaber. And Master Kenobi said always to trust your gut. He smiled as he got up and reached for his lightsaber, but then he stopped himself. He reached out his hand and thought of the Force. He could feel the Force surging through him, like how a hot drink feels when you're drinking it. He thought about what he wanted, the lightsaber, to come to his hand. He felt a rush of joy when the lightsaber came into contact with his hand, and he chuckled. Never gets old, he murmured to himself. He quickly shut the door to his room and began to hurry down to the Jedi training grounds. He didn't have much time. The sun would set in a few hours, and the temple guard wouldn't let him train after sunset. As he approached the training ground, he saw Petro in the grounds. It wasn't surprising to see him here. Petro was usually practicing with his lightsaber ever since his trip to Elam and got his lightsaber. Petro saw Tael coming immediately, and he lit up with excitement. Tael grew excited as he quickly walked towards the temple training grounds. He was always excited to do a small duel with Petro. Petro was still a youngling, but he should be chosen as a Padawan in a few weeks. He was only a few months younger than Tael after all. I thought you had to study that book that your master gave you, Petro said with a smirk. A Padawan such as yourself should be more responsible and do what their master says. Tael just rolled his eyes and said, Yeah. How about we do a duel and then we'll see who's smiling. Petro turned off his lightsaber, and the two ran to a spot where they could practice. They both put down their lightsabers on their hilts, and each were given a practice lightsaber. These allowed them to fight without danger of hurting each other too much. Tael didn't like them as much as his lightsaber. It never felt right in his hand, while his lightsaber felt like it was an extension of himself. He shrugged as he and Petro lined up for their duel. Petro got into a stance that Tael recognized as Shi Cho, the most basic lightsaber form. Petro had gotten pretty good at the form, and it was his favorite out of the two forms he knew. Petro would most likely stick though with Shi Cho over Sorasu, since this was a 1v1 lightsaber contact. Tael's new master had begun to teach him Makashi, which was an ideal for a lightsaber combat. Although Tael was far from mastering the form, he knew it enough to throw Petro off. The two squared off, each at the end of the small box in the arena. They began to circle each other until Tael made the first move. He went for a strike for the shoulder, but was blocked by Petro's fast movements. A small crackling noise could be heard from the two lightsabers pressing against each other. Petro pushed Tael away from his and rushed forward for a quick double motion attack, one to Tael's leg and the other to his arm. Tael blocked the first with ease, but it didn't expect the second, and would have gotten hit if he hadn't ducked in time. They both got back into their poses, and this time Petro made the first attack. He tried to do the same move, but this time Tael was prepared. He reflected the first blow, and as the second one came towards his shoulder, he dodged to the side and did a quick stab to the ribs, causing Petro to yelp. Ow! He groaned. Lucky shot! Uh-huh, Tael said with a smile on his face. He offered his hand to Petro, who accepted, and the two set off again. They sparred for around an hour before the masters came and told Petro it was time to go to his room. Tael quickly dispersed afterwards. He didn't like training by himself anymore. It was also getting dark outside. He began to walk towards his room. He began to navigate through the temple, thinking of ways to improve his form against his future enemies. Tael grew excited to go to the front. His master and him were going to their first assignment in a few days. He had never fought against a battle of droids. He continued to think about his mission when he began to notice something strange. Where were the temple guards? They usually posted outside the council's doors, but they were nowhere to be seen. After a few seconds, he shook his head. The temple guards were probably on another assignment, or break or something. A loud noise interrupted Tael's train of thought. He couldn't be sure what it was, but it sounded like... Tael quickly spun around and began to run back towards the central hall of the temple. He knew what that noise was. He had heard it several times a day. It was blaster fire. But how did the battle droids invade the Jedi Temple? Tael continued to run until he reached the end of the hallway, which he saw the destruction. In the middle of the hallway was a full-on battle between unprepared Jedi and not battle droids, but clones. Hundreds of clones poured through the door, shooting an endless siege of blaster fire towards the Jedi. He saw friends that he knew, either fighting or running, but either way the clones were killing them. Tael staggered backwards as he saw Master Kundai being blasted by two clones behind him. Tael couldn't believe what his eyes were seeing. Tears of sadness and anger filled up inside him as he watched his brothers and sisters die. He pulled his lightsaber from his hilt, preparing to join them in the fight, when he felt a blaster shoot him through his stomach. Tael just stood there for a second, realizing what just happened, when 3 more shots came in the back. His eyes were barely open, but he could see the boots of the troopers hit the floor in front of him. One stepped on his body as he made a groaning noise. The clone stopped and looked behind him to see Tael barely alive. Master Yoda would always say, he thought. The trooper began to raise his blaster, that we become one with the Force when we die. His fingers went over the trigger. I hope it's true. The blaster hit him in the chest, over his heart. Tael Sundrow, Padawan of Master Fendraw, died from the hands of a clone trooper. Hey guys, thank you for listening to that short story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I did. It was fun writing it. If you want more fan fiction like this, just let me know. I would love to keep creating it. This one was a little darker. It's part of a little series I'm writing of just different Padawans, temple guards, younglings, and Jedi Knights and Masters alike. And just what I thought they went through when they went and, when the temple was invaded by Anakin and the clones. So I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Check out my other channel. It is Gibberish HS. That's where I have a podcast called Gibberish Discussions, where I talk about all kinds of different things. And, check out for more stuff where we rewrite movies and other things like that at the channel. Thank you for watching.